Hey guys, welcome back to today's college football pick video play for September 14th, 2018. If you're interested in getting all of our college football plays for this week's action, you can get those over at stumpthespread.com, which is linked down in the video description. Heading into this one, talking about this matchup here between the Georgia State Panthers and the Memphis Tigers, and where we think the better value sits against the spread. The road team, the Panthers, coming in as significant dogs, getting 27.5 points, so just a half tick below getting 4 total touchdowns. Now, in terms of what the Panthers have done so far this year, in their opener at home against an FCS opponent, they got past Kennesaw State by a final of 24-20. Kennesaw State, not the worst team by any means, certainly at the FCS level, and the Panthers at the FBS level expected to win those kind of matchups, even though it was competitive. They were able to pull it out at the end of the day. And then going into week 2, a matchup on the road against NC State, which is a team that certainly figures to go to a bowl game coming out of the ACC this year. And the Panthers, they had a tough time in terms of staying with NC State throughout the entire course of that one, losing by a final of 7-41. But in terms of the numbers, it wasn't all that bad for Georgia State when you really dive in to how things played out. So they were close after the first quarter. It was 7-10, that's 7-20 going into halftime. And then really going into the fourth quarter down 7-27 is respectable as well. It's just they were outscored in that final frame 14-0, which made things a little bit more ugly there. But just in terms of the overall yards they picked up offensively, not too bad. 242 yards through the air, 107 on the ground. So about 350 yards in total against a Power 5 opponent, and a respectable opponent at that. There are at least some positives that the Panthers can take out of that, even though it was a convincing defeat at the end of the day. But the negative more so, I feel, for the Panthers in that one was their defense got gashed by NC State's potent offensive attack, 426 yards through the air, 115 yards on the ground. And that's going to be what we're watching in this one here for the Panthers. They need at least a little bit better of a defensive performance if they're going to have any shot at hanging in and trying to stay competitive with Memphis in what's obviously going to be a very tough battle going back-to-back weeks on the road against credible competition. Now, the Memphis Tigers really disappointed in what they did last week on the road against Navy. That was a Navy opponent that the week prior that got absolutely torched by Hawaii, especially through the air in that pass game. And the Tigers, they weren't able to replicate that. It wasn't the perfect weather conditions, which perhaps had somewhat of a factor, but the Tigers still, at the end of the day, they should have been able to win that one, especially close it out after they had gotten up to a 21-9 point lead, but outscored in the final frame 0-13, not getting the job done. Now, Memphis, they weren't able to have the same success through the air against Navy that Hawaii was able to have. They only passed for 145 yards, 15 of 25 passes completed, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. It was the ground game that carried the offensive attack, 233 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 24 carries, with Henderson picking up 212 yards. He really put the offense on his shoulders. Now, on the flip side, Memphis defensively, not too bad against Navy's triple option attack. It's really tough consistently stopping that ground game from Navy within the AAC. And Navy, they picked up 264 yards, 3 touchdowns on 73 carries, and then also 52 yards through the air on 6 completions. So in terms of what Memphis did last week, I give their defense a thumbs up in terms of the overall performance when you consider going against a tough opponent like Navy, a really tricky offense to defend, but definitely giving them a thumbs down on the offensive side of the ball for not completing more passes through the air and able to gouge what can be obviously a vulnerable Navy secondary, as we saw the week prior in their defeat against Hawaii, simply not getting the job done there. So that's somewhat of a concern for us coming into this one against a Georgia State defense that you would also assume would be one that Memphis can take advantage of, but we'll see if they're able to do that here. Now, not to totally rain on the parade for Memphis, their week 1 matchup, they looked great. It was against an FCS opponent, and you would expect them to go out and play at a high level against a team that they should beat, and they went on to win that one at home by a final of 66-14. Now, Georgia State, in terms of the level of opponent, probably somewhere between a Mercer and a Navy, but Memphis still getting a lot of respect here from Vegas, as they're almost favored by 4 full touchdowns. Now, the Panthers, the fact that they were at least respectable in terms of their offense and gaining yardage against NC State, I feel like the amount of points they need to score here against Memphis to cover a spread of this magnitude, maybe about the 2 to 3 touchdown range, and we feel like the Panthers can do that. So with that being the case, we're going to go ahead side with Georgia State here, getting the 27.5 points as the better value play. If you agree, give the video a thumbs up. Disagree, give it a thumbs down. Check out all of our college football plays for this week's action over at stumpthespread.com. Link down in the video description. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we hope to see you guys back here for future videos.